Hey, what's going on? This is Nick with Capital Brew Marketing. I'm joined here by Aaron Clough. Aaron, say hello.
What's up?
What's going on, man? So this is my cousin. We are both huge football fans. You've had a pretty nice career, I think, better than a nicer career than most people, the average person would have in the football world. Why don't you give us a little bit of background about your football career?
Yeah, I joke and say that I was not even a has-been. I was never was, but you're far too kind to me. Was fortunate enough, grew up in Texas. I think everybody knows how big we are on sports, specifically football here. And so played uh, probably at what everyone expects or thinks of when they think of Texas high school football, playing 14, 15,000 people on a Friday night. And so that was a really cool experience. Ended up going and playing D3 football. There's a running joke at my house that my wife is the better athlete because she was a Division I cheerleader at SUNY Albany. And so go Great Danes. But played for a couple years at Hardin-Simmons University. Was fortunate enough to play and coach there. Had some injuries, so playing career got cut a little bit short, but was a top 25 program, coached a lot of really, really good athletes at that level and just all around good athletes. That took me then to up to the Capital Region and coached at the not anywhere close to what you would describe as a powerhouse of Hudson Valley Community College. But got to spend some time up there. Both our families are from the Capital Region used to live up there. And so we got to spend some time together, got a really good life experience. And then went to coach another school in Wisconsin and did that for a couple years. Got tired of making 5 or 10 grand a year and living in people's basement. And so decided it was a time to get a real job. And now I get to be the armchair quarterback or armchair coach that debates on all sorts of things for athletes that are much better than I am. So
For sure.
yeah, that's the long and short of it.
All right, so I will. I think it's safe to admit that you would be out of the two of us the expert, while I'm just the layman, and I know very little. I played Pop Warner, a little bit of high school football, and that was the extent of my football career. So out of the two of us, you're our expert.
Well, what's funny though is like you would think that regardless across sports, everyone knows that guy or gal that is like the numbers guru, right? Like they can tell you who got drafted or like who like the Yankees pitcher was back in like
Yeah.
some random game in 97. Like we all have that friend. I am not that friend and not that person. And so you'd figure like looking at stats, like and looking at stats and looking at game film and things like that, like definitely have that. But to sit there and like uh I don't nerd out about a lot of stuff. And
Yeah,
so definitely aware. We'll talk about some teams that we're probably both familiar with a little bit more for better or worse.
for sure.
But yeah, there are some definitely some NFL no, in no way, shape, or form am I like the knockoff Schefter. Not me. So but yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, for sure. So I myself am it's funny, I'm not a numbers guru and I should. Unfortunately, we were talking a little bit before we started this podcast. I did this bike ride and I kind of got a little carried away. I lost some track of time. So I'm a little bit behind, but we're obviously we're you're you grew up in Texas, right outside of Dallas, Plano. Where you living now?
Yeah.
You still in the Plano area?
I live out in Rockwall area,
Okay.
so if you for the amount of distance, if you go west instead, or excuse me, go east instead of north,
Okay.
um, but from the house I grew up in, probably 45 minutes, and
All
that's
right.
because of traffic. So yeah,
So it's safe to say that you're a Dallas Cowboys fan.
I am in the heart of Dallas Cowboys country, for better or worse.
Yeah.
And for me, this is an interesting time as a Dallas Cowboys fan because I feel like I'm in an abusive relationship, and I'm about to pack my bags and leave.
Yeah.
But
Hey.
as a kid that grew up in Dallas, like during the triplets era,
Yeah.
and like I had the Aikmans, Emmett Smith,
Yeah.
and Michael Irvin bed sheets, and am just old enough to remember the last Super Bowl win, but I also am old enough to remember the what are we going on 29-year drought, 30-year drought
Yeah.
of Super Bowls.
Yeah.
So against my better judgment, a Cowboys fan.
And I grew up in the capital region of New York, and it's safe to say that it's funny because we've got a plethora of fans. I'm actually surprised at how many Boston fans. We got a lot of Patriots and Red Sox fans in my area. to my chagrin. But I grew up as a diehard New York fan. I love the Knicks, I love the Rangers, I love the Yankees, I love the Giants. I'm just that that New York guy. So and with us, being family and you being
Yeah.
the Dallas fan and me being the Giants fan, we've had a couple of conversations throughout the year. So I think we're obviously this podcast is going to be very oriented towards the NFC East, specifically the Cowboys and the Giants. But I do want to talk a little bit about the Eagles. I do want to talk about the Commanders and the NFL in general. But there's going to be a heavy Giants and Cowboys podcast. With that being said, I know it's the preseason, and who cares about the preseason? The Giants did go 3-0 in the preseason. I think then you follow up with the Philadelphia Eagles, who were 2-1. The Cowboys, I believe, were 1-2, and then you've got the 0-3 Commanders. The Commanders had a really good year last year. Giants had a really bad year last year. Cowboys not their best year, but obviously the Eagles, Super Bowl champs. They're the defending champs. They're the team to beat in this division. But I want to say, and we'll talk a little bit about later on, the vibe in the Giants locker room is outstanding right now. And if there's one thing to take away from this preseason, it's the Giants' change of attitude.
For
So,
sure.
like I said, we'll get back to that. Let's start with your Cowboys. Um, you know, you got Diggs, who's hurt. His knee may not make it for the season opener. What's your take on that?
I think you're right. And preseason's preseason, right? And to even take a step back from the teams, let's talk about like how big of a turnaround over probably the past 4 or 5 years that the NFC East has been. Arguably, you go 4 or 5 years ago, arguably one of the weakest
Yeah,
divisions in all of the
yeah,
NFL.
the NFL punching
Um,
bag.
yeah, and so to go like into you look at it, and three of the four teams, obviously the Eagles won a Super Bowl last year, unbelievable team, much as I hate that coming out of my mouth. Um, you saw the Commanders in the past couple of years with Dan Campbell, like, or excuse me, not Dan Quinn, not Dan Campbell, but to take just tremendous strides. They've got an absolute just killer at quarterback. Um, and you're right. The vibe or the morale coming out of the Giants, coming out of preseason, I think is there. I think, we'll get into a little bit of probably Jackson Dart and what he's done for that team, and you can see the excitement and some of those things. The least hype coming out, as I'd have to say, is probably the Cowboys, right? Like they are
A lot of
very much the
turmoil.
Cowboys are the Cowboys as the Cowboys are. Diggs obviously has had some knee injury, hard to come back from. It's something that some people bounce back, some people, that takes a while, and sometimes they're never quite back to what they were. And
Yeah,
so, hopeful to get him back because it's a defense that struggled mightily in all aspects. Not
yeah,
expecting a whole lot from him in the run game. But when you look over the past 3 years trending, like it just trended downward.
yeah,
And so you have a combination with that. Um, and I think that as an NFL team, you hope to come out of the preseason, you hope to kind of test some of those things. You run some stuff that you normally wouldn't. You kind of want to see situational stuff and see some things there, how young guys, how unproven guys react, and how these teams come together. So win losses are not so much what I'm concerned. I think too, you get a lot better look at your depth and what you have. But from a Cowboys standpoint, I think it's just, man, it's a lot of the same. It's, a team that compared to their peers in the conference who has and gone out, whether drafted really, really well or gone out in free agency and made some really strategic moves. It's almost like the Cowboys, like we did get George Pickens, which is the biggest pickup that maybe in the offseason they've done in the past 2 decades. But yeah, it's been very lackluster and not a lot of identity and not a lot of questions answered coming out of the preseason, right? And so
yeah,
we'll get into probably the cuts and some things there, but long-winded of saying is, it is as it has been, and as a Cowboys fan, not super motivating.
yeah. You know, well, we'll get like I said, we'll get back to the Giants, but I will say, You're right. You go back 4 years ago, and it's a completely different division. Somehow, well, again, it's preseason. I'm a Giants fan. I'm a realist. There's a lot to be excited about, especially the new attitude on the sidelines and the new rookies. And like I said, we'll get back into that. But you're right. In the last 4 years, there has been a makeover of the NFC. Like you said, Dan Quinn over with the Commanders has really turned that team into somebody to watch. You know, they are a dangerous team. And obviously losing Saquon to the Eagles, probably one of the most painful things I could ever say. I don't mind losing Saquon because he was always injured. I mean, he was a great player for us, but there's just I didn't feel like his heart was in it. There's a lot of times where he would take himself out of the game where I didn't think it was necessary. I can't tell you how many times I looked at that screen. I could just see Saquon going, and then just walk off the field. It's tough. And playing for the Giants during that time was a hard time. So, but the Eagles have put together a really good team. Almost just one of the most dominant teams of in NFL history. So, I think you're right. As far as digs go, you do have you're kind of slipping into that rebuild era. You've got into like our next topic, Micah Parsons.
Let me jump in on that and say
Sure.
that, like, this is going back probably even farther than that. This is probably 6 or 7 years ago at this point, working with people that were Giants fans. And like, here's my thing is that, like, if you're going to be, there's no owner and there's no team and there's no GM that goes into a season being like, hey, I think we're going to be really good. And then just magically are like, holy shit, it turned out that we were terrible.
Yeah.
Like, you go into that kind of knowing that. And I think, the Giants a couple years, like post Eli, post some of those things, like, they knew they were going to be bad, but they were bad for cheap,
Yeah.
right? Like, and it allowed you to clear cap space. It allowed you to clear that stuff. And like, listen, you're still there. It is still approved. What have you done for me lately, business?
Yep.
But at the same time, if you know that you're going to go through that rebuild or reboot or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
like, it's really hard to come out of it on the back end when you're tiptoeing or like you're hanging out towards the top end of that salary cap,
Yeah.
right? Like,
And we were
so
for sure.
uh, yeah, and there was years like, listen, like, and it was, the Giants were down, but they've gone out and they've been able to pay players and they've got some stuff, and we'll get into that stuff. But like, each one of those teams, with the exception of the Cowboys, have done a really good job of controlling those budgets, especially in years that are down or that you're not vying for a playoff spot.
I know
And it
Danny
allows you
Dimes
to go pick.
was painful.
Yeah, well, again, Cowboys fan, I get it, man.
We had the Vanilla Vic era, and all of a sudden the Giants are like, "Yes, take my whole bank account, like it's yours."
Yeah,
And then we
yeah,
got
take
stuck
it
with that.
all.
And I do have a take on Danny Dimes and the Colts, but we'll get to that later. I mean, again, and I don't want to rub salt on an open wound, but like I said, Micah Parsons is another issue for the Cowboys currently. How do you think that shakes out?
I don't know. It's hard. I think that it's a Jerry problem, right? It's a Jones problem. And listen, like, it is of you probably saw the reports that came out that his agent essentially came back and said, like, take your contract and shove it up your ass, your negotiations, like, we're going to negotiate that. And at the end of the day, right, like, it's his client, it's his role to negotiate. Now, whether you tell them to actually shove it up their ass or that gets twisted, like, that's a different conversation. But at the end of the day, like, it is his job to negotiate, and it's why players hire agents. And
Yeah.
so, that's great that Jerry went and in principle went and negotiated these things with Micah Parsons and this and that. And like, I don't know what happened with that. We'll see if it gets done. I think the bigger underlying problem is that we have been, for as long as I can remember now, is like robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Like, we signed the Dak Prescott thing where he literally makes, like, I think I did the math on, he makes like $165,000 a day, a day.
That's
But it's then you go and you've got the CeeDee Lamb contract,
Yeah.
and then you go and you just bounce down these things, and it's this one thing of like where it's whack-a-mole, right? Like we're gonna run into cap problems, we're gonna do this, and then like the one of the few stars that we have, and then it's like, well, how do we cut this low-hanging fruit or do this? Or you know you see some teams, right? Like I know James Cook was just going through it with the Bills. It happens, right? Like you go into camp, things aren't negotiated, things aren't done. But it seems to be that it's every year with the Cowboys that we are down to the wire with someone who is a major player
You're
that
right.
is sitting out or holding out or sitting in. And the argument is like, listen, it's not like they never like I can't remember someone we haven't got a deal done with off the top of my head. So like just pay them.
Yeah.
Why drag this out? Why drag this like it's a thing, right? Like anybody else is like at the end of the day, this is a job, right? Like
Yeah.
this is a job for these guys. It's a game, it's this, it's that. But these guys, this is their profession, it's just this. And you could sit there and argue and say that, well, like these guys, they get paid this much money and just like play and just do this and do that. And like when you look at average career, you look at the product they put out, the fact that they can do this at as less than 1 percentile of
Yeah.
all of the people that play
I can't do it.
um yeah, no, like you don't want to see me do that. Like you wouldn't pay me $9 to go watch me play on Sundays. Like
No.
so like to sit there and say that and like it is generational money. This
Yep.
is,
Yep.
if you have a fantastic NFL career, you're in the
Yeah.
league 5 to 7 years. And so you
I
get these
think
guys
three
that are
is the
now coming
average.
out earlier that are retired from the league at, 25, 26, 29, sub 30.
Yep.
And so when you start talking about what the difference that makes, it absolutely does make a difference. But at the end of the day, too, it's you want guys that want to be there, right? Like I was reading something about
Yeah.
about the Broncos and the turnaround they've had,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
we make it
Oh,
into
Knicks.
them, but you look at it like they want to be there. You
Yep.
look at someone like Buffalo, if you're watching Hard Knocks, and my wife's a Buffalo fan, I'm
Yep.
not a Buffalo fan, but like I've got a respect for them because they've done some great
Yeah.
things. But like their whole thing is like we want to develop guys, we want to draft them, we want them here for a long time, we want them to renew contracts, and like they want them to be there. They want them to want to be in the building and play for the team, right?
Yep.
Like when you are fighting people tooth and nail every single year, like I'll ask, like, why would you want to be in the building,
Yeah.
right? Like if you know the guy that controls your paycheck is fighting on everything, like you've got to go every single month and like every year and do this in the regular work world, you'd be like, fuck this, I'm gonna go work somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what it comes down to, these guys. Like the rules are the same whether he plays here or plays in Philly or plays in Boston or play wherever. But you don't get a lot of player loyalty and the players really fired up to be there when you fight them tooth and nail and everything. And I get that it's a business. I get that he's got to protect that. I get that they've got to work within the cap space. But man, it just seems like we can't get out of our own way.
Yeah. I agree. And like you said, I was kind of touching on it with Saquon. You got to have guys that want to be in the building. Saquon's a great player, but if he's not happy on the team and he's not performing, you're just paying a guy to just sit there. That there's nothing healthy about that. So I agree. And I think it goes both ways too. I think Parsons gotta, it's kind of gotta realize, what he wants. But to go back, yeah. So yeah, what's your take on the Cowboys rookies this year and their performances during the preseason?
Booker, the offensive lineman, think he's really solid. Not a lot to write home about a lot of the other guys. I'm a Texas guy, so love to see Jaden Blue finally healthy. Um, did some good things. I think that he's really going to have to step up on special teams. They're carrying a lot of running backs. That's probably one of their biggest areas of what the cut's going to look like. Do they cut? Who do they keep? Who do they cut? So hopefully he makes the team. Would love to see him do well as a homer, but yeah, no one that really blew the doors off of it, in my opinion. Houston, the outside linebacker, defensive end, he's not a rookie, but has had a really good camp. But yeah, a lot of the same, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was some flashes in the pan for the Cowboys and their preseason and their performances. We'll go ahead and jump over to the Giants side. First, I want to talk about
Yeah,
the
I mean, you got way more to be excited about than I do. So
especially rookie. I mean, we had a pretty good draft as far as rookies go. I mean, if you look at the rookie class, the highlights, obviously, we've got our number one pick, or number three pick our first pick in the first uh round of the draft is we got Carter. Um, Carter looked very, very good in the preseason. I know
he's he's
AK
he's
called
special, man.
yeah,
He's a
yeah,
special player.
freak athlete, yeah, and he's smart.
Yeah.
He's well put together. Um, he's going to be something. It's funny because he went to I don't know if you heard the story, but he went to LT, Lawrence Taylor. He wanted to wear 56. LT told him no. He says,
I did hear that.
I'm honored that you want the number, but if you're going to be as special as everybody thinks you are, pick a different number and make that the number,
Yeah.
your own number. So that's pretty exciting to hear from LT. That I didn't take that as a dig. I took that as pave your own way. I think you're going to be special. So
Yeah.
so that's exciting to hear. Obviously, Jackson Dart, it brings a lot of energy to the locker room. Um, we have Scattaboo. Uh, um, he played only, I think he got like 4 snaps and averaged about 4 yards. I think I got like 12 snaps, but only ran 4 times, each time getting about 4 yards. So it's too early to tell. He's coming off of an injury, but I think he's another spark on the team. I think he's gonna, even if he's not a stat guy, he's gonna bring a lot of swagger to the team with his destructive personality when it
He
comes.
is he is like he is if the Giants had a fan play, like I could see him if he would. Like I see him being a Giants fan in real life. Like he may smoke parliaments, like he'll probably drink a 40 in the parking lot, but like dude's a hell of a player.
Describing
Like
me?
gave a lot of people fits,
Yeah,
played against Texas in that Arizona State game
yeah,
and went off, Big 12 championship game went off. He's a special player. He can do a lot of stuff.
yeah,
For a guy that can really just bang between the tackles, like he catches the
yeah,
ball really well. He does a lot of different stuff. And
yeah,
so, maybe a situation where he's just got to get up to speed with the game
yeah.
and learn that stuff. And
He
listen, like
hardly played the
NFL
position.
playbooks are absurd.
Yeah,
Like they are, they're insane. And so there
yeah,
is that learning curve. So I think all three of those guys are gonna do really well.
yeah,
I think y'all's defensive line is arguably the best in the conference and obviously one of the best, maybe arguably one of the best in the league.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, they've addressed a lot of stuff, which they need to. Dabble's on, probably thin ice. He's got to make something happen this year, and
I'm glad that
or Dable,
remember
excuse me.
I said to you going into this, I was like, Dable, I want to see, I don't want to see the playbook in his hand. I don't want to see him playing calls or making calls on the sidelines. I want him to coach the team. And if I don't know if you noticed this whole preseason, not one single time did he have a playbook in his hand. So I'm excited about that he's actually giving some of the other guys the opportunity. There's another rookie, by the way. I'm trying to look it up. I don't mean to be distracted. He was a offensive lineman. His name is escaping me right now. He was like a fifth or sixth round pick, and he killed it this preseason. So he's another guy to keep an eye on, and I will put his name in the description when I find his name. Um, yeah. So, but also to go back to the quarterback situation, we were talking a little bit before we hit record, and I think that obviously the Giants are in a great position. Any one of the 4 quarterbacks that are currently on the team as we speak, nobody's been cut as of yet. This is the Saturday before the Tuesday 4 o'clock deadline, where all NFL teams have to be down to their 53-man roster. So nobody's been cut as of yet. I think all 4 guys on the QB squad for the New York Giants have the opportunity to be a starter. I know that's kind of a hot take, especially if you're looking at my guy, Tommy Cutlets. Love watching him play, Tommy DeVito. I think that if the Giants are smart, they get something for Winston before this deadline. They trade him. I know there's a lot of teams out there that could use quarterbacks right now, and I'm looking at like the Raiders. Who knows with I mean, the Browns have got their own little situation going on, but there's some teams out there that could use, if not a number 2 guy, that might deal a draft pick or some other need that the Giants have. And I say that they keep Tommy Cull. It's not the best thing for Tommy, which as a true fan, I would love to see Tommy be a great NFL quarterback and a starter and have a great career. But as a Giants fan, I want to be selfish. I want to keep him on my roster. So I don't know. What's your take? What do you think?
Short answer for me is that is an absolutely a Giants like hometown like feel for the guy kind of pick. If you cut him, it doesn't clear up a bunch of cap space. I think his contract is like 1 year, like $1 million or something like that. you're probably wrong, 1.3 or something there.
Yeah.
It's interesting for them to go and they traded up obviously to get Dart. He has played arguably as well as
Yeah.
anybody in the
Oh yeah.
NFL.
He
And
he's
and
something
you
special too.
watch the team respond to him. I think that obviously we can all agree that he is the future of that team.
Yeah.
And the future may not be several years down the road, right? Like you've got a guy like Russell that's there that is doing well.
He's a
He's
bridge
going to do
player.
well for you. Yeah. I love me some Jameis, but he's an interesting dude.
Yeah.
We kind of all know what you're going to get. He's
Yeah.
he's a guy that's going to win some games
To make
for you.
some
He's
great
obviously got
throws, some
yeah,
questionable
he's got
decisions.
he's got a couple in the bag for him,
Yeah.
but yeah, when you talk about someone that brings an attitude and brings a confidence, which I think that team needs, you get that. You get a really, really smothering style defense. The pass rush should be great. You guys have sexy Dexy in the middle. Like
Oh, I love Dixie
run
Dexy.
defense should be fantastic as well. I think you need that spark, especially went out and spent so much money or went out and got neighbors and have done a lot on the offense. I think that Jackson Dart is the future for you guys, and the future is not far off. Like the
Yeah.
future may be 4 or 5 games into this year, right? So hard to argue against that kid right now.
Yeah. We got about a minute and a half left, so we're probably just going to cut the rest. I mean, obviously, the Eagles are the defending champions. The Commanders, like I
Yeah,
said,
Eagles are Eagles. I don't know that I don't think that the Commanders have done. I think they're going to be solid. I mean,
yeah,
they got
they're
Daniels at
solid.
quarterback. Yeah, they're going to be.
Beaters.
They I don't know that they did anything that was world beater in the draft or picked up free
Yeah.
agency. I think they're going to be good. I
They should
think
ignore the
that
preseason. They're the ones that should ignore the preseason. I think they're going to play a lot better than they've looked in the preseason.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It's probably too soon to pick. I think it's hard to say the Eagles are not, vying for that top spot in the, NFC East again. Um, Man, Commanders, Giants, that's going to be tough, right? I think it comes down a lot to the defense, right? And then what happens there, the Cowboys will
Be a
be
couple of
last.
wild
Like
card
the
teams.
Cowboys might be one of the worst teams in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, hot takes real quick. Outside of that, like who has really impressed you this preseason, or who have you seen that you're like, man, they look pretty solid.
Me personally,
Yeah,
from any team,
yeah,
Jackson Dart had a huge, he's 372 yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. He's
yeah.
been,
That's huge.
yeah, I think he's been a big surprise.